We're going to look at a variety of things today, starting with some trees and shrubs that are starting to develop their fruiting structure. Some are finished already, like leatherwood and buffaloberry. Their berries are ripe and already eaten by birds and squirrels. They're the exception. Most take a few months to develop their mature fruit. And we'll start with ironwood or Hophornbeam. And these interesting structures would look like hop fruit. That's where it gets the name Hophornbeam. These little green kind of like paper sacs in this hop-like cluster. They'll turn brown later in the season. And inside each one of these at the base is a little, single seed. So it's a little green thing right now. See if Eric can get, no, I dropped it. A little tiny, well, not too tiny. It's so slippery, it's hard to grab. But you can see it there. A shiny green thing. That'll turn brown later when it ripens. And certain birds, including ruffed grouse, chickadees, nuthatches, will sit on these branches and pick those little seeds out of these little paper sacks. So they're really interesting to look at on ironwood, or also called Hophornbeam. Right behind the ironwood is the Pagoda Dogwood, right up against the Jensen Center backside. And here are the developing fruits. They're green now. They'll eventually be kind of a dark blue purple in late August into September. And these light green berry stems, which are called pedicels, will turn red. As soon as dogwood fruit, whatever kind of dogwood it is, and there are many kinds of dogwoods in there, about 6 different native species in Door County. Birds love all dogwood fruit, and they'll take these as soon as they're ripe, but those then red berry stems or pedicels will remain on the plant for a month or more and provide some color, along with the leaves that turn a nice maroon in the fall. But these are the developing berries. Actually, it's a kind of fruit called a drupe, D-R-U-P-E, with a single seed inside. And they're about the size of a small pea. That's about how big they are. A little bigger when they're ripe. But that's what they look like this time of the summer. Pagoda dogwood. And right next to the Pagoda dogwood, at the northwest corner of the Jensen Center, is Maple Leaf Viburnum. You can see why it gets that name, because it has a maple-shaped leaf. But it's not a maple, it's a viburnum. There are several native viburnum species in Door County. This is the one that's fairly common at the clearing. Just finished flowering a week and a half or so ago. You can start to see the beginning of the fruit. They'll get to be about 3-4 times that size, turn almost black. It's oval-shaped and a little flattened, but when they ripen, a lot of birds will take these fruit as well. So that's just the beginning of the maple leaf viburnum. Also a drupe in viburnums, like dogwood. It's a single seed inside that fleshy covering. Maple leaf viburnum. And right next to the maple leaf viburnum, we're doing the whole show in about a 10-foot diameter circle here. We have some later blooming, this is smooth rose, not a lot in flower this time of year for native plants, but here's one. It's in a little bit of a shade, so it's a little bit further behind the other ones. But this is that beautiful native rose up here called smooth rose. It's called that because if you look at the stem, there aren't any thorns on it. You have to get further down toward the base to find a few thorns, but it's, as roses go, one of the ones with the fewest number of thorns. Still have some flower buds to open yet here too. Beautiful fragrance. In the flower world, this is called a single flower because it has a single row of petals. Most people are familiar with double flowered roses, which have multiple rows of petals all packed together. The single flowered roses, native roses, are very fragrant, and they're also fertile. They'll form a little red berry called a hip, a rose hip. A lot of our more bred roses, like the hybrid teas and such, don't form a fruit. They're sterile. This one is great not just in flower, but it has this colorful fruit later in the season too. And the fall color can be really nice on it too. So smooth rose. I'm standing in the Jensen Center front parking lot in one of 6 pollinator plantings in these parking lot peninsulas. We started doing one of them a couple of years ago, and we did 4 last year. We're doing one more this year. So the idea is to have something beautiful in these in our parking lot plantings, but also something that benefits pollinators. We have lance-leaf coreopsis, common milkweed, butterfly milkweed, black-eyed Susan, I can't remember which liatris, I think prairie blazing star, pearly everlasting, and I might be missing one thing, but we have a variety of, little blue stem, a native grass. All native Door County plants, several of them native at the clearing. And they're just starting to come into their own, with some stuff starting to bloom. The coreopsis is blooming. The black-eyed Susan is going to bloom soon. But our gardeners, Beth Coleman and Renee White, have planted and tended these. Takes a bit of weeding. We need to get this all filled in and established to kind of keep the weeds out. But it's been a fun project so far, and we're going to keep at it. So this is common at the clearing, lance-leaf coreopsis. We have in our big meadow, the Homestead Meadow, it's just at the tail end of it right now. It was gorgeous a week and a half ago. And we have some here between the parking lot and Garrett Bay Road at the Jensen Center. Quite a bit of it in our northeast meadow, the Hay Meadow. But it's kind of past its peak now. But these, in being in a little more shade, are just peak right now. This is taller than they would normally get for 2 reasons. It gets shade part of the day, so plants that want sun stretch a bit in the shade. Plus it gets watered a lot. We're watering these a lot to get these new plants established. But this is, everybody loves lance-leaf coreopsis, that great yellow flower, great for pollinators. We also have in here some pearly everlasting. And here's a good example of one right now, which looks pretty ragged. People are wondering what's going on here, and if it's an insect problem, and it is, why aren't you taking care of it? So this is a damage caused by painted lady butterfly caterpillars. This is why I planted this. We want to attract those. Other butterflies are attracted to pearly everlasting too, but specifically painted ladies or American lady butterflies. And it looks pretty bad that they grow out of this and eventually turn into this. New foliage grows. They look fine again. And this is just starting to form its flower buds. So in another couple of weeks, it'll have these nice clusters of white flowers that attract all kinds of different pollinating insects. So this is pearly everlasting, lance-leaf coreopsis, and just about to bloom here, our native black-eyed Susan that I see the deer have also enjoyed a little bit too much. We also have common milkweed here, which isn't blooming in these gardens, but there's some native stuff or some natural stuff up the road here we'll take a look at that's in bloom. So our pollinator plantings at the Jensen Center. Our last one for the day is common milkweed, which just is about to open its beautiful clusters of pink flowers. There's one right there, a couple right there. Really pretty. This is a plant that monarch butterflies depend on. They only lay their eggs on milkweed, common milkweed, butterfly milkweed. There are some other ones, other native milkweeds. This is the most common one. And the fact that it has the word weed in its name is bad news for this plant. A lot of people just assume it's bad because it's milkweed. And it can, in some applications, some gardens, become a little weedy, has to be pulled out. But in a place like the clearing where we want butterflies, especially monarchs, we leave them all. We don't mow them down. A lot of milkweed gets mowed down because it grows in ditches, and county and town road crews mow it down a couple times a year. So the monarch, even those that have caterpillars on it, get mowed down. So we just saw a monarch butterfly walking up here. So there are a couple around, not seen very many this year, but they will lay. The adult butterfly will feed on nectar on quite a few different kind of plants, including milkweed, but they only lay their eggs on milkweed species. And we'll be watching for them. Common milkweed. Oh, I should show you why it's called that. When you pick a leaf off or break a stem, it bleeds a white milky sap. And it's sticky also. That's where it gets the name. Not a weed.